Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Driving More Value from Your Customer Experience Strategy, sponsored by Get Satisfaction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. As you know, this webinar is being presented by Michael Fawcett, Group Vice President of Software Business Solutions at IDC. For those of you who are social media savvy, if you are interested in doing any tweets or social media, please use the hashtag #CXM for Customer Experience Management. And Michael Fawcett's Twitter handle is @mfawcett. So with that, I'd like to give an introduction to Get Satisfaction as a sponsor of this event before I introduce Michael. Get Satisfaction is a community platform that helps companies create engaging customer experiences by connecting customers to each other to talk about the product and services of that company and creating engaging customer experiences at every stage of the customer lifecycle. Today, Get Satisfaction powers over 70,000 customer communities, and 35 million users each month are engaged in one or many of these Get Satisfaction communities to ask questions, share ideas, and bring up customer support issues about the product and services of those companies. Brands such as KittyCare, which is the largest online retailer in the United Kingdom, Men's Health, Blackbaud, which is a high-tech company, Procter & Gamble, and many companies are using Get Satisfaction to truly drive real business results. Michael Fawcett, in his presentation, will talk about how customer communities help drive more value from your customer experience strategy. Examples of these business values are, for example, Blackbaud has actually decreased their support costs by 50% by enabling customers to talk to each other to answer support questions. Athena Health and Men's Health are basically gathering customer feedback, and KittyCare has been able to leverage 1,000 product champions per month that actually answer questions about their products. And Procter & Gamble has over 9 brands that are using Get Satisfaction community to connect their customers to each other and recognize their brand advocates and engage with each other. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Michael Fawcett. As I mentioned earlier, Michael Fawcett is Group Vice President of Software Business Solutions at IDC. In this role, he leads a group that encompasses research and consulting in enterprise software applications, including ERP, CRM, customer experience, collaboration, and social applications. Michael is also a recognized thought leader in the area of social applications and the transition to the social business. And with that, Michael will talk about how to drive greater value from your customer experience strategy. Michael?
Great, thanks, Aziza. You know, we hear a lot today about customer experience, and it's definitely a hot topic. And you know, a lot of that I think is driven by what we read and what we hear about the social customer, or this idea that customers' expectations have changed. You know, if you think about sort of fundamental behavior, there is definitely a difference. And you know, we've learned, and now that we have access to the internet and the sort of always connected world that we live in, that you know, that certainly behavior is different. And if you think about how, you know, we used to control the message as a business, it was easier to know what your channels were, to know the message that went out, and you know, generally that message stayed fairly intact. Today, of course, people don't go through traditional channels. They go to new channels for information. They may not even ever look at your website for information about your company. They may simply go to Facebook, or they may get information off of the Twitter, or they may, read Amazon reviews or reviews on another site. So it does feel less controlled. There's no question. But I think if you start to think about customer experience, and I think the perception is that when we talk about customer experience, we're talking about this sort of champagne taste idea that we have to provide this great, wonderful, over-the-top kind of experience for everybody. And I think it's actually different than that. So, if you think about what we're doing from a customer experience standpoint, I don't actually seem to have control of the slides, by the way. So if you guys just want to advance them, that's fine. Perfect. Thank you. So if you think about this, if you ordered a taxi and you had this picture in your mind of what the taxi cab would look like, perhaps this would be your picture. I'm not sure everybody thinks of a taxi cab as a Lamborghini, but I like this one, and so in my mind at least, if I was expecting this to be my taxi, then if I walk outside, and next slide please, and I actually had this view instead of my Lamborghini, I'd be upset. I mean, obviously my expectations wouldn't have been met. Now, they're both taxis. They both certainly could get me from one place to another, albeit the Lamborghini get me there much faster, I'm sure. But the point is that I had in my mind a picture, and what happened in reality, my experience, was very different than the picture. So that makes me, much less satisfied, or the opportunity for you to have met my expectations and made me satisfied is missed. But my expectations might not have been that high. They simply were this picture that I had. You didn't know. You delivered differently. So if you think about next slide, please. If you think about customer experience, it's really this intersection, this little intersection in the center of this. It's about my expectations, and it's about my experiences and where those overlap. If they meet, then I'm satisfied. And this just sounds like a really simple thing, and it is simple actually. But the problem is finding out what my expectations are, and really building a process or building a strategy that can help you get to know me and deal with me in a positive way everywhere I might be. And that presents a lot of problems from a business perspective. And it is really about process, and about more than just simply technology. It's about really working through this entire process of strategy around how you deal with the customer in every place that you do deal with the customer, so that you can work through finding the medium, this little tiny overlap spot where you've given the experience that the customer expected, and you have a satisfied customer. Next slide, please. So customer experience, has several components, and I think, I'm a technology analyst, so for me, it's I tend to focus around software and technology a lot, but let's be honest about the strategy. When we're talking about customer experience, we're not talking about buying something, some software product that magically gives you and your customers this great experience. We're really talking about several different things that have to be tied together in a strategy. And the strategy then has to impact processes. So you have to have business processes in place that help you manage this customer experience. You have to have people in fact, I laugh a lot of times. I talk to companies and they talk about their customer-facing people, and I know what they think in their minds. They think those few people in customer support or sales or in marketing, those are their customer-facing people. But, let's be honest. Think about customer experience, and this idea of satisfaction comes when my expectations match my experience. What does that mean? Well, let's say I ordered a new iPhone and it was supposed to be shipped overnight, and it was delivered, and it would be delivered tomorrow. But the person on the loading dock loaded it on the wrong truck, and it ends up being delivered 2 days later. Well, my expectations haven't been met and I'm not satisfied. But it wasn't the customer support people that did it. It wasn't your salespeople or your marketing people. It was a simple action of logistics or supply chain where it didn't happen correctly. It wasn't executed correctly throughout your business. So my point is that when you think of people, everybody in your company in one way or another has an impact on the customer. Everybody's customer facing in this new environment, and you have to think of it that way. And then, also, of course, technology plays a part of this. Products play and services play a part of this. So, if you aren't producing products and services that are at certain quality level or that meet the expectations of your customer, then you're certainly going to not provide the right kind of customer experience or the experience that the customer is looking for, information and access. So all of these pieces come together to really form this customer experience strategy and really help you craft around this how you're going to build an experience for the customer. Now, next slide, please. But the interesting thing about where we are today is that things really have shifted, but not the basic activity. So if you had a dissatisfied customer in the past, that customer would have certainly provided negative word of mouth, influence about you. But the difference is that today you can see when they speak, the megaphone is much bigger and it has a much different impact. I like to use the example that I think most everybody's heard of is the United Breaks guitar example. The Canadian musician Dave Carroll was traveling on United, and his guitar got broken as they were loading it onto the airplane, and he spent a year playing phone tag with different customer support channels and being switched to different people and having to fill out new forms and all these different things that certainly weren't a positive experience for him. And so finally, in frustration, he took his band, he wrote a song called United Breaks Guitars, he posted it on YouTube, and in the first day they had over 5 million hits. So guess what? 2 days later, United called him and they took care of his problem. So today, customers, influencers, employees too, but people have this access to a channel, this uncontrolled channel that can really go viral and could be a word of mouth in a positive or a negative way that could have dramatic impact on your brand. And it's all in channels that you don't control. It's all in places that you may or may not even hear when it first happens. So that is, that's a fundamental shift in the way, and it's not, it's not really expectations, but it's behavior that changes because of this. So next slide, please. So if you think about the fundamental thing here, it's this idea that the internet, our connectivity, has opened up all these different avenues and all these different behaviors and all these different patterns. So, what changed because of the internet? Well, simply first, of course, business models change. We have the opportunity for little cottage industries to turn into global distribution, global businesses, because they have this new channel, this new way to distribute and get customers and build brand anywhere that there is connectivity, and that's certainly different business model for them, or business models that generate indirect revenue that have grown to be huge, like the Google, for example. These and Amazon, and certainly disruptions. You think about disrupting traditional businesses because of having the internet is the capability to build this really big business. So certainly from an economic perspective, the internet had dramatic impact. And then technically, this is also really important. Technically, having the internet, having this connectivity, opened up the world of connected mobile devices, tablets, smartphones, and it turned us into a population that is connected and on all the time, really. So this is a very different, leads to very different behavior when you can stand in a store and take a shot of a barcode on a product and shop online for that product, and if you find it cheaper, you could order it and have it delivered, actually in some cases now in the same day, but at least by tomorrow, and save money and still have had the experience of seeing, touching, feeling the product. So this connectivity really changed that. And then lastly, the social piece of it, and this is this is really where you see a lot of the behaviors and perhaps expectations that have changed or different, or certainly the way that influence is created and the way that influence can impact your brand through this new social web, through the idea that we build these relationships online, and it's very different than what it would have been in the past. And we have this capability to build a relationship. In the past, it was really built on proximity and interaction, and now it could be, proximity really is not, geography is not a factor in this. You can build relationships everywhere. I have friends, online that I've never actually met that I talk to more than I talk to people that I've known for 30 years. So all of these things, this connectivity certainly has a big impact. Next slide, please. So who am I? That's one of the most important questions around this idea of customer experience, and this is a real challenge. And actually, if you want to just build out this slide, I'll talk through it. I'm Michael Fawcett. I was introduced to you. You now know who I am. I'm a group vice president at IDC, and I have this certain identity. But on other parts of the web and in other places I do business, other places I interact. I mean, if I'm checking in at the airline, I'm Larry Fawcett because that's my legal name. Or if I'm on my passport, it's Larry Michael Fawcett. Or in Gmail, it's M Fawcett. Or on my website, it's M Fawcett. And in Facebook, it's M Fawcett. And on LinkedIn, it's something different. And on Google Plus, it's something different. So all of these different things, these are all me. And yet, if you were a business trying to figure out how to offer me the right customer experience, no matter where I wanted to interact with you, you have a serious problem. Because today, and next slide, please. Today, I end up being a faceless person because, in fact, I have too many identities. It's the opposite problem. And so you have to figure out a way in this sort of faceless crowd to put a name to me, put an identity to me that's unique to me and is transferable across all the different channels that you could possibly interact with me. So that from a technology perspective is a significant challenge for most companies, and something that you would have thought that CRM systems were designed to help you solve that. But if you start to look at the issue, it's not just a CRM system problem, because CRM systems certainly manage transactions quite effectively, and they may manage your sales interaction, and they may manage your marketing, and they may even manage some of your customer support interaction. But when I step back a level, when I'm in your loyalty program, or when I'm on your website, or when I'm in your store, or when I'm on Facebook, or when I'm in all these different places, then it's very difficult to tie that all together. So next slide, please. So one of the things that we see, and I'm going to talk a fair bit about community because I now have really, over the last year, I think, become convinced that communities are, in fact, one of the most important keys to this idea of identity, and also they offer a significant value across a lot of different activities inside your business. So, the community gives you the capability to tie together in a voluntary way. And back in the 90s, I did a startup that was around permission-based marketing, and this idea I think was really strong. The idea that you build trust relationships as you engage with someone, and it's small steps, and it's a slow road really. But as you interact with somebody online, you build more trust over time as you have the right sort of interaction, the right positive interaction that would meet their needs. And so over time, they're willing to give you more information and share more with you because that trust relationship is there, and it's very important in this environment. So, the community, I suspect now, as I've looked at this who am I question over and over again from a technology perspective, one of the simplest places and ways to solve this is in the community itself. So the community, which is a trust-based relationship, has value for the customers. Certainly customers love to interact in them. And I just did a survey back. We do surveys twice a year on social business, and just last week, actually, I got the data back from our most recent one. And we ask, every time we've asked, what initiatives. What social business initiatives are you planning on doing in the next 12 months? And that's changed over the last 4 years. And certainly the first surveys were a lot about marketing, and then it turned a lot about enterprise social networks and collaboration and connectivity, knowledge sharing. But over the last year, it's really shifted out to this idea of connecting the whole company. And in this survey, the number one activity that companies are planning on implementing this year is communities. That just shows that companies more and more realize the value of community. So let's look at some examples and some ideas around what could happen or what is happening in certain businesses with the community. So, if you think about the first area that I think is an obvious place for communities to work is in your marketing organization or your marketing program. So, what value do you get out of the community from a marketing perspective? Well, you get customers that are interested in your brand, certainly, and you get customers that are willing to open and share and have conversations and talk and provide you with information about themselves. The idea of identity I already mentioned, but more than that, more information about things I want, things I'm interested in, products and services I might be interested in, how do I like to interact. So there's all these different, strong bits of information there that really can give the marketer a great deal of intelligence. So we have a lot of activity around social media monitoring and this kind of idea of listening and then responding, and the community provides the foundation for a lot of that listening. And then next slide, please. If you take that, you also combine that in the sales side. There's a lot of activity and a lot of opportunity around the sales side as well. So just an example, and this is and actually Azita mentioned this one in their customer examples, kittycare.com. It's a UK retailer. They went into this both from a marketing and a sales perspective. So, how could the community provide them with some value? Well, what was their problem? Their problem was that on their website they had a high level of cart abandonment. They had very low search-driven site traffic volume. They wanted to try to use, word-of-mouth advertising, word-of-mouth conversations to help drive and build their brand, but they didn't really have a good way to do that. And then they didn't really have a way for customers to ask very specific questions as they were going through the process of buying. So, for example, I'm buying a car seat for my child, and have a specific brand of car, and I want to know, will this car seat fit into the car that I have? How do I find that out? Where do I go to get that information? Because that's not something that's easily Googled on the web. Perhaps you might come up with it, but there's a great chance that you wouldn't. So all these factors, it really made them think, let's do a community, let's build a community and see if we can get product specific interaction, word of mouth, content to help answer questions. Can we get some interaction in this community that builds discussions that helps provide voice of customer throughout the whole purchase flow. So it gives them information, it gives them a place to find information as they're going through the process, and in that build enough engagement that perhaps they could reduce that high level of cart abandonment. So what did they see? Well, they saw an 8% increase in product cart conversion, so that's a tremendous sales benefit there. They saw a 5% gain in search-driven site traffic, which, again, is a great marketing benefit. That was one of their goals. And then, also extremely important, they saw a 30% drop in one-to-one interaction and a 63% gain in first call resolution. So when customers or prospects had questions or issues, they were being dealt with much more quickly and much more effectively in this community environment. So again, definitely one of the biggest reasons, or some of the biggest reasons that we see community and companies are really going heavy into community, are the sales and the marketing benefit that they see out of it. But actually, go to the next slide, please. I said the place that really has driven a tremendous amount of value back to companies is on the customer support side. So, and even in the example, the KittyCare example, there's a bit of support involved in that when it gets to answering questions or helping resolve issues. So, If you think about the opportunity that you have to build out a community where customers actually help each other because they certainly know your products, they know how your products are used quite well. They can definitely provide extremely relevant content and conversations that both help each other and give you, the opportunity to help head off problems or find problems, find issues, resolve issues, and can certainly offer some benefit in the back end of that to perhaps reduce the burden on your support organization, maybe reduce your cost around that. So, one example that and you've certainly a company, a brand that you'll recognize, Rhapsody, premium music service, has been around for over 10 years, and they have over 1 million subscribers. They're on multiple different types of devices. So they had several goals, and they were looking at, trying to build out the community. The biggest one was to build out a best-in-class service in a self-serve environment. So how do we make this kind of self-serve, community environment, create this environment so that we can reduce support cost and increase the, kind of one-to-many interaction, and help employees to see the issues that are out there in real time, so they can take action when something's beyond the scope of just a question, and they can help really build engagement there. And then lastly, they could tie back into this community to test features and get real-time feedback on beta testing and features in a way that was much more cost effective for them, and at the same time provided real value for the customers because they got direct input into the process. So they built the community out. They actually used a widget that put the community in the music player itself. They got a lot of employee participation, and certainly a lot of customers that were very interested in the community. And from a results perspective, they saw a 50% decrease in their support cost. They had a 53% decrease in weekly support contacts, and they had 71 of their employees that actually participated in the community and really engaged in the community. And they they saw a big benefit just in those employees having the capability to hear the voice of the customer themselves and then take action and help really build out a solution that met the customer's needs. And I'll give you one more example, and I like this one a lot because it ties together support and also gamification, which is certainly getting a lot of attention lately. Kudu is a mobile provider in Canada, and they won several awards now, for customer service. They won a J.D. Powers award for wireless customer satisfaction 2 years in a row, 2011, 2012. They were top rated by Consumer Reports in 2011, 2012, and so they've gotten a lot of recognition, and their problem or their goal really was to build this self-sustaining forum where customers could support themselves. They do peer-to-peer support, find answers, and obviously then if they did that, they thought they could offload some of the call volume of the support organization, and then over the next few years they could build that into a major support channel that would lead their own employees into a more of a moderation role instead of a direct support role. So that was their goal. And one of the things though that they saw when they launched the community, they wanted to try to draw more customers in more quickly, and so to do that they built in a gamification type of strategy, rolled out a type of strategy in the community so they recognized customers that were participating, and the more you participated, the more you got, more points you got, and the more you were recognized. And they came out with these cute little brand icons, little icons that went around your picture on the community that identified your status in the community. So it was kind of a status thing, and people were actually really trying to up level by helping each other and providing information and trying to get to this top level, which was mobile master kind of thing. So the gamification really increased engagement, and in fact they saw in the first month after they launched the gamification, they had more users join than in the entire previous 12 months combined. So Power Gamification certainly drew people in and had a lot of engagement and increased the engagement in the community a lot. And so now, they see 7 in 10 customers get answers from a peer when they have a problem. They found that in measuring the interaction in the community, that the average peer-to-peer issue resolution time is within an hour, which is tremendous. And from a call deflection standpoint, they did a survey, and they found that 92% of the survey respondents would have called or emailed customer support if they hadn't had their issue resolved inside the community. So, it's a little different look at how, at what potential or what kind of call deflection they're really seeing. But as the community's grown, it's really provided a lot of benefit back to the customers through this, call resolution and in peer-to-peer support. Next slide, please. So the other area that is just really gotten a lot of attention over the last couple of years, and I think part of this is because innovation is a really hot topic, and certainly the economic pressures that we've seen have really helped to build that. And in this kind of global hyper-competitive environment, it's even more important for companies to be ultra competitive and innovative around products and services. So, so how do you build out an innovation management process? We've been looking at this for a couple of years now, and the process. There is an entire process, and I won't spend a lot of time going through the whole process because the point here is really to talk about the customer part of it. But from a customer perspective, the most effective way we found, and not just customers but partners too, to gather direct input into the product development process is through a community. So, companies are using the communities to really drive product development. There's a mobile handset developer. They make hardened, industrial kind of enterprise devices. And a few years ago, they were having a lot of problems because their devices were often missing the mark. The customers were really not satisfied. They were, buying new devices. They were going out for other competitive devices. So they launched a community to try to solve this. And the community was really about getting the voice of the customer into the product development organization. So they used the community to drive adoption. To drive ideas into the product development process that would cause adoption downstream. So, so how powerful is this? You can get direct input from your customers into your products and build products that your customers have already told you they want to buy. So that's what they found. They found that, in fact, they were able to turn the business around, in a year or so's time because they had the capability then to start to release these products that much more hit the target and really met what the customers were asking for. So innovation management, one of the best use cases and definitely one that's gained a lot of momentum. Next slide, please. So one of the big issues here, though, and this is and when I talk about social business, I often spend a lot of time talking about silos, but I just want to take a minute to talk about this whole connectivity piece. So, when we're talking about communities, this is really important. The communities providing great value to the customers, and they provide a lot of value back to the company. But one of the places that I think is extremely important is this idea of connecting everything to inside the company and really starting to help you break down the silos that exist in your organizations and that exist between your organizations and your customer. And so using the community to drive word of mouth or voice of customer back into your employee base. So in other words, connecting your enterprise social network into the community offers great value out for the employees who really can hear something that they haven't had the capability to hear before. Connecting product developers, product designers, and directly into the customer's voice that really provides great value there. So breaking down silos is an extremely important concept in social business. When we talk about enterprise social networks, we talk about organizational silos. But there's also this idea of the boundary, the firewall around your business. We've got to figure out ways to break that down and engage partners and engage customers more directly with your employees in these communities, which really gives value across the board. Next slide, please. So just to step back up to a level then to the customer experience piece, community plays a critical piece of this. But if you think about what we're trying to craft here from a strategy perspective, we're really talking about responding consistently across all these different places that you could interact with your customer. Now, if you use the community to help figure out who your customer is, that certainly gives you much greater capability to have the data inside that lets you know that customer in all of the different places you may come across them, whether it's a website or whether it's the telephone or it's in some social network or it's in some a physical location, so in your store, or even just in a traditional marketing kind of perspective, so that you can target and market the right marketing to the right person. So all of these things, then your strategy really has to be built around how do you tie the consistency across these channels out. And then next slide, please. And then the same in the opposite direction. How do I get the internal working in a way that that really can bring the entire weight of the organization to bear on this idea of customer experience, and understand that customer experience spans all of these different things inside my company. If I don't build the customer correctly, that can cause a problem or dissatisfaction. If I do build a relationship with my customer, can I upsell? Can I cross-sell? Can I get them into other places in the company where they have needs? Can I execute one-to-one marketing? Can I really get the marketing targeted to the customer? Can I build influence programs, and can I drive word-of-mouth marketing? Can I deliver the right kind of customer service? Can I use communities to deliver that service, and so that I can build engagement and at the same time be more effective? So all these things tie together into this customer experience. So it's the tying all the channels together, knowing the customer, and then tying the internal together as well, and making sure that the entire organization understands how it's tied together and going to interact with the customer. So next slide. So from a benefits perspective, I've talked about all these before, but I just go back through them. Obviously, knowing your customer, what's the advantage there? You think about just testing products in the past. How hard was it through focus groups, or trying to take a sample, take a survey, get to understand what the customer wants, versus now build a community, have those customers tell you what they want, and listen and interact with them in a conversation. That's extremely powerful. Then from an engagement perspective, customers that are involved in communities show a much higher level of engagement. They're really invested in their relationship with you because they're spending time, they're giving their time to participate in this community, and they're getting value back, or they wouldn't be participating. From an innovation perspective, we have this capability of drawing the voice of the customer inside the organization and really getting an understanding, a level of understanding of what the customer wants beforehand that we've never had before, and really getting ideas from a much broader population than just the small number of people that might have driven product or service innovation in the past. Whether it's tapping into all your employees through an employee community or employee social network, or whether it's tapping into your customers, or whether it's tapping into your partners who also know your products and services well and know your customers, and can certainly drive innovation there too. From a sales intelligence perspective, customer satisfaction. And if I can cut cost and increase customer satisfaction, then that's a benefit. Otherwise, I'm not going to take that risk. So increasing peer-to-peer interaction, which, has been shown in survey after survey that we've done, certainly does drive up customer satisfaction, and it drives up engagement. All of those things tie together really, from a benefit perspective. And then next slide, please. So, just a few thoughts around communities and customer experience in general. Give value to get value. That's the number one thing, and this is one of the social web's basic tenets. You have to give to get back, and that's just expected. And customers have to understand what's in it to them when they go into the community, what's in it for them, and then the benefits back to the company. Certainly, you're investing too. You want to make sure you get investment back from that as well. Return back from that as well. Connect the inside to the outside and the outside to the inside. That's this new network idea, the connectivity that ties all the employees together with your partners, your customers in a broader network. Silos are the enemy, no question. They definitely create issues when you're trying to communicate with your customers. If you think about your internal issues, if you can't communicate across your organizations, then you can't communicate consistently out to your customer. That's going to create more problems. So silos, both from the outside in and inside out, create issues across your organizations with your employees and with your customers and with your partners. Technology is not enough. It's really about change of behavior. It's about culture. It's about process. That goes across all the different categories in social business, but it's extremely important when you talk about customer experience, because it is much more than a technology. It's really about changing the whole focus of the company and bringing to bear the weight of the entire organization to help really build that customer experience so that it does meet the expectations of your customers. And then lastly, this idea of sense and respond is a really powerful concept. It sounds really simple, but it's about building a data-driven organization. It's about using these different ways that you have to interact to also catch information, data, both socially generated data and transaction data, bring that together, and then work out the right response with your customer, depending on what you're trying to do. That could be a marketing issue, could be a sales issue, could be a customer support issue. All those cases, listening and then building a response based on the data is the new business model as we go forward. So with that, I think I've managed to save a few minutes for questions, Azia.
Thank you, Michael. That was very insightful. And so we have a few minutes to take some questions. And so, again, just before I get to the questions, what I'd like to do is just remind everybody there was some feedback that some people would like to know more about some of the customer examples that Michael provided. And actually, next Wednesday, February 20th, we have Kudo Mobile actually giving a webinar about how they're combining gamification with customer community. So we have a couple of questions here. And the first question is from Lisa Barnett. And I'm not sure I understand your question, Lisa, but let me go ahead and ask it. Do you really see that Facebook, Google+, and Pinterest are able to build a trusted relationship with customers? They're not traditionally seen as a community. And I'm not sure if that's what you meant, Michael, but maybe you want to clarify that.
Sure. So when I'm talking about customer communities, I'm really talking about a environment that you as a company have put forward to draw your customers in. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't interact out into those other social channels, because they're very important and they need to be taken into account when you build your customer experience strategy. But the customer community itself is really, something that the company is going to manage. You need to, have community managers. You need to be involved in that, and it needs to be integrated into your other systems, from customer support all the way across to your enterprise social network. So that's really a thing that the company is going to do, and that's open to your customers and prospects, and that varies by business how that actually plays out. But that's the concept, and then these other channels, these other places, if I'm out on Pinterest, there's obviously a lot of good marketing opportunity there, and I want to tie that back into my community, but I'm not going to actually try to build my community out there or in Facebook or whatever. People are there. We want to make sure we can interact with them there and in the community. That's particularly true in support. I mean, those are support channels that you need to tie into your support system. But the customer community itself, it really needs to be a thing that the company has control of.
Terrific. The next question is, you talked about business processes, organization, technology, all as a key part of customer experience strategy. What is your recommendation as, the different steps in terms of, creating a great customer experience? What would be the steps you recommend as companies start to look into embracing customer experience?
Sure. Well, I mean, it seems like I know it's kind of scary sometimes when I talk to companies and work with companies that are trying to do this, because I talked about everything in your whole company, so how do I make all those things work correctly? But it really is about laying out this roadmap and a strategy that says, okay, here's where we are, and you have to be really honest with yourself. Here's where we are based on data that we can collect from our customers, and then you start to work through your organization to figure out what those pieces are that you have to put in place. I often see companies start with a couple of really obvious areas. One of them is, can I tie all my can I get across my organizational silos by doing something with an enterprise social network? So that's a technology, but that technology can help you build a culture, a collaborative culture, a knowledge-sharing culture that's really important in this. Another place that I often see, and this is part of the reason that communities are so popular, and we saw in our survey that a lot of companies are going to be deploying them this year, because that's another great place to start to really build out an experience that can help you across a bunch of different areas. So it's not, communities can really, it's one community, and it can really help you in customer service, it can help you in marketing and sales, it can help you in, product innovation or service innovation, it can help you, across all those different places. So, and perhaps be the place that you can really identify your customer in all those different channels as well. So it has big benefits, and you want to focus on those areas where you can see big return. And it's just a long change. You don't change culture overnight. This is a process of moving through incremental changes that turn you into this customer-facing organization, this really experience-focused organization. So it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a plan, and it takes adhering to that plan, and it takes listening and then responding and correcting. So if you build this community, you do it to listen to your customers. You deploy an enterprise social network, you do it to listen to your employees and your partners, and so through all those channels, you have the ability to collect the information that can make you better as you go through the process of getting people to participate and driving adoption and then improving. And so it's a continuous cycle, really.
Terrific. Thank you. We have another question from Elizabeth Schiffman, and it says, do you have any suggestions on getting started on creating a customer community? We use Salesforce.
Yeah, I mean, I won't talk about specific products, but I think, I think the number one thing is that why do you want to build a community? So you have to figure out inside your organization how does this fit into your strategy. If it's a part of your customer experience strategy, maybe it's directly, and often I see this, it's a part of my customer support strategy, because that's maybe a little more tactical, but it's a place where we can see real value quickly, and so it's a good place to start maybe. But I think that's the key. Figure out what you're trying to do with this. Why do I want to build a customer community? And come up with some very hard metrics, and then come up with very specific requirements, and then you look at the technology. The technology comes after I know what it is I'm trying to do, and all of the CRM systems, Salesforce, Oracle, they all have the capability to integrate with some of these other platforms. In some cases, they may have their own type of community platform too, but a lot of times you'll see real benefit from the community platforms that are specialized, that have very robust analytics, and they have much easier management capabilities, so your community managers can engage more effectively. It has the capability to integrate in customer service and marketing and sales. So I'd say understand what you're trying to do, then build out your requirements, and then look at the technology and find the one that's the best fit.
Terrific. Thank you, Michael. So I think we have time for one last question, and question is actually a little bit more clarification on the example you gave with Kitty Care. And Michael, I'll probably go ahead and answer that since we know that customer really well.
Sure.
Question is, how have they leveraged the voice of the customer as part of their e-commerce site? And the answer to that is with the guest satisfaction community, you actually can use our widget architecture to very easily select certain types of topics that are tagged related to a specific product, and then embed that on your website, anywhere on your website. So you can put it next to the product page on the website, which is what Kitty Care did. They basically inserted a widget that basically provided any praise and any questions about that particular product next to each product. And this way, when somebody was looking to potentially buy a product, if they had a question, they wouldn't have to leave the product page and go find an answer elsewhere. They would get an answer right away, and that's what resulted in a greater increase of from product to shopping cart conversion. All right, so with that, really appreciate everyone participating. We had a good participation here, over 65 people. So a couple of points. One is that we will actually provide you with an email today or tomorrow with a link to Michael's slides that we will place on our SlideShare, Guest Satisfaction SlideShare page. And also a replay of the webinar will be available tomorrow, and we will post that on our website under the events, under the webinar section in our resource center. So thank you very much again for attending. And Michael, thank you. It was a very insightful presentation. Thanks for your time.
Sure. Thank you.